What's up, Badger Nation? I'm Nancy, a behind-the-scenes Badger, filling in for Michael while he's in Italy, living the dream, taking a much-needed and well-deserved vacation. He'll be back next week, but until then, we are re-releasing one of our most popular podcast episodes on how to send Google Ads traffic to your Amazon listing. Driving external traffic to Amazon boosts your ROI in the simplest and most impactful way, so you won't want to miss this episode. If you like what you hear, be sure to give us a thumbs up, share us with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the latest in Amazon PPC tips and tricks. And enjoy the show.
What's going on, Badger Nation, and welcome to the PPC Den podcast, your source for all things Amazon advertising, tips, strategy, and techniques. Today, we have a very special episode, as they all are, to be honest. We have my friend on the show, Adam Heist. Adam, what is up? We were introduced by our mutual friend, Stephen Pope, weren't we, a couple months ago?
We were, man. Thanks a lot for having me on, and kudos to Stephen for the intro. It's, your people in the space kind of all find their way to gravitate together, and it's good that we all met each other through Stephen. But yeah, man, thanks for having me on.
Oh yeah, right on. And you are based in Utah, which is a beautiful place. What do you like to do in Utah? Are you a big outdoorsy person? Everyone I know from Utah is outdoorsy.
Yeah, so I've been in Utah for 4 years. So I'm originally from Canada. I spent 14 years in Texas, the flatlands, the concrete jungle of Houston, Texas. Oh, so yeah, I've been here for 4 years and absolutely love it. So I live in Park City, which is up in the mountains. So for context on what I like to do in the summer, kind of summer time frame, I'll go mountain biking pretty much every day. So we basically have 400 miles of single track from my garage, which is pretty badass. And then in the winter, I like to see if I can ski, 50 plus days a year. Kind of similar thing. I leave my garage and it's about 8 minutes to sitting on the ski lift. So kind of outdoor paradise here and try to take advantage of it as much as I can.
Oh, that's amazing. You know what? When you mentioned the Canadian, I heard it for a second. I was like, oh, there's the accent, I think.
Man, I've got such like a bastardized accent. You'll hear me say A and y'all. And I mean, it's, I've kind of got a potpourri accent from my experiences over the last 20 years.
Yeah. Well, we have a really, really interesting topic today. One that I believe is only going to become more important. And it's a topic that I believe Amazon has always implicitly wanted everyone who sells on their platform to do. And they've made some recent changes over the last few weeks, really. I believe this was a summer 2021 thing, which is really driving external traffic to your Amazon listings. And that recently taking that implied, like, hey, send us your external traffic, is now explicit because they added this brand referral bonus, actually rewarding off Amazon traffic to your Amazon listing. So we were going back and forth about certain topics to talk about, ones that were really exciting to you. And this one is, I know, going to be really exciting to our audience because we talk a lot about Amazon ads. And if people are skilled in Amazon ads, launching some things on Google Ads is going to be a really nice transition. So I'd love to have you share your experience with it, of sending off Amazon traffic to your listings. And when did this idea sort of first come across your desk, basically?
Yeah, it's a great question. And maybe we'll kind of peel the onion back slowly and kind of start at the beginning. So I'm going to say it was at least a year and a half ago, maybe a little bit before, where kind of the Facebook ads to ManyChat, like heavily discounted rebate, like launch campaigns, I started to see the cracks in the armor, so to speak. And I'm like, you know what, the gig's up. I mean, it wasn't quite up at that point, but for me, the writing was on the wall just because of the quality buyers that were coming through this. So I'm like, you know what, I got to reinvent my launch playbook. So the impetus for it originally was really launches. And around the same time, I started to learn about the California Privacy Act. There's something in Europe where you can basically call on any software company, product company, anybody that has a website and say, hey, I want you to give me all the data you have on me. There's a similar rule through the California Privacy Act where basically anybody in the US can also request of websites and providers. So I basically initiated that request via the California Privacy Act with Amazon for my buyer account. And it was a treasure trove of data. It was frankly, like, you kind of know that they track everything, but when you see it with your own stuff, it's a little bit like disconcerting.
Wow.
So they had 28 zip folders on my personal Amazon buyer account, and it was
crazy
Alexa stuff, Amazon Prime stuff. But there was a particular folder that had basically 10 years of all of my and my wife, who uses my account, a history on Amazon as a shopper. So every search I did, every product I added to cart, every product I bought, every IP address I searched from, every hardware device I searched from. I mean, it was insane. But one of the interesting things that I saw on, like, again, column whatever, XZ or whatever, it was like a pretty far right column, was they had this section that was all on external traffic. So number one, if the source of the search originated from outside of Amazon, they had a column there that tagged that actual site. And then they also had a column that tagged whether or not that traffic was from an ad or not. And, you know, so that was like the first inclination where they're clearly tracking it. And around
so they
the same
knew the
time,
difference. They knew the difference whether you clicked on like organic Google result versus a paid Google
100%.
result. Wow.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So that was the first light bulb moment where I'm like, okay, well, they're clearly tracking this. And it makes sense if you think of it from Amazon shoes, in the sense that, you know, they've got 160 million or whatever it is Prime users in the US. So they've got a lot of them, but there's still folks that aren't always shopping on Amazon. And so if you can disrupt somebody's online behaviors when they're doing something else, bring them to Amazon, whether or not they even convert, they've got additional data to retarget. They've got new search queries that they can use. They've got additional information on you that they can leverage to basically monetize it. And I'm sure that they kind of have like a monetized dollar value for folks that come from an external source that weren't shopping.
Yeah.
So that was the thesis. I'm like, you know what, let's just kind of put this out there. And then at the same time too, I started doing a lot of research on kind of Google SEO stuff. And if you kind of notice, if you type anything into Google, it's very rare to find an Amazon link. And the reason is, I believe, is that Amazon and Google don't really like each other, as you can imagine. You know, Google is the world's search engine. Amazon is, at least in most Western countries, the product search engine. And so I'm pretty sure that Google does not reward Amazon traffic as much. It's basically Walmart product links and other stuff. So I think Amazon started to realize both the value of external traffic, and they've definitely been tracking it, and the fact that they're not getting any SEO love. So in my view, and we can kind of get into how this is rewarded with organic rank, but they heavily reward traffic that originates from an external source. And if it originates from an external ad that they themselves didn't have to pay for, because they also run ads on your product's behalf oftentimes, they're going to reward you for that in organic rank. So I've started playing up this thesis really over the last year and a half, and it's just, especially for launches, and there's a whole bunch of other uses that we can get into, but it's absolutely an insane weapon in the arsenal to drive performance on Amazon.
Yeah. You know, even without the technical reasons to do it, like the marketing based reasons to do it, just from a straight up business perspective, it makes total sense for Amazon to develop systems to reward external traffic. Like if they could take a sale away from a Shopify store, they're going to love that opportunity. Amazon loves putting their tendrils as deep as they could possibly get into the economy. So it makes total sense. And I believe it, but it's like, wow, that they were tracking, even if you're, as just a common consumer, they were tracking like if your traffic was external or not, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And it's also funny that you mentioned the Google SEO too. I do somewhat follow Google SEO updates, and I feel like every so often, because I have friends that run like Amazon affiliate sites where it's like, it's a blog about, what notebook you should have, and like they'll just review notebooks, and then there'll be a link to go buy it on Amazon. And Amazon affiliate sites that try to rank on Google are always like hammered every Google update. They're like, oh, you need to change up your Amazon affiliate site. You need to make it more robust. Is that an indirect way at like hurting Google search results that have Amazon links to it?
That's interesting.
Push them down. Maybe. So you saw all these things coming together. And can I ask really quick too, you started to see the cracks in the armor of the ManyCheck, because I remember when that was happening, that was super duper hot. Yeah. And I think it's great. It's a great lesson to be aware of that, like anything that's sort of hot, like a hot trend, maybe maybe is a little gray, somewhat, in terms of like white hat, black hat, a little gray hat. What kinds of things did you see in the ManyChat funnel? Just because I'm curious on what that experience was like what you saw, what made your sort of spidey sense tingle a little bit, that you're like, maybe this isn't going to be a long lasting strategy.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it was kind of like, it's kind of like that feeling like if you were like read someone's diary, like it just didn't feel right. Like I had that, like, this doesn't feel right, like the whole time. But the thing is, it was so freaking powerful that it was just like why not do it? But it never felt right, and it always felt fleeting. So I kind of knew the gig at some point was going to come up for various reasons, and I always played it really down the middle with stuff. I didn't do 100% rebates. I didn't ask for reviews. I always like to inject plausible deniability if you're ever kind of participating in that gray territory. So I always kind of knew it was going to be fleeting and never really felt great about it. But I basically ran a lot of these, like how I did kind of position mine was doing like product research based funnels. So I basically say, hey, we're doing this for product research. We want to find out more about how you're viewing our page, and we will give you basically a 50% rebate at the end of it. So I would usually do about 50% rebates. But the problem that I started to see, and where I kind of started to see things go downhill, is just the quality of the buyers. Like it was clear that the Facebook pixel and their algorithm was picking up these very rebatey, deal seeker type personalities. And you could just kind of tell by looking at the Facebook profiles. Like you weren't getting the best of the best in terms of consumers. And I really started to see just like the fallacy in the people that were starting to come through the funnel and coming through. So I think that was like the first inclination. And then I just kind of saw everybody and their mom doing it. And I'm always a believer in, do the things that are incrementally more difficult. They're not crazy hard. Most of the stuff in the Amazon space that's difficult, quote unquote, you can figure out in 30 minutes or an hour, but like zig when other people are zagging. And that's always been my thesis. So I think it was a combination of the buyer quality that was coming through was clearly not great. It was starting to dull a little bit in terms of impact. And I started to see people doing it in very nefarious ways, and almost every seller was doing it. I'm like, I got to reinvent the playbook to stay in front of this. Because at some point the gig's going to be up. I'd rather get off the boat before it starts sinking. And that was kind of some of the early signs for me that made me look at external traffic.
I love that we went over that, because I think you can compare something like that to what we're talking about today, which is something that Amazon has explicitly said, we like this. So I think, and there's ways to measure sending Google Ads traffic to your Amazon listing. So I think that's fantastic, because so many people are like looking for like the next thing. And I think a sharp business person, a sharp marketer is like looking at it and it's like, what's the longevity on this? Is this, gray hat? Is this black hat? Like these things probably aren't going to be around for a long time. Am I trying to build a flash in the pan type company, or a company that's built to last, or a company that I'm hoping that gets acquired one day? So now we're at this point in the story where you actually did run Google Ads traffic to your listing. Would love to hear about like how you set up your first campaigns. Like what was your keyword selection look like? Like what was the price comparison? I'd love to hear about like how it got started.
Yeah, 100%. So I think what's, I guess, important to realize is that it was kind of weird when I first did it. Like when you go into any new platform, you feel uncomfortable. And I think that's really an important kind of, when you signed into Facebook for the first time or Gmail, like there's always this weird feeling. I remember when I set up my first Amazon shipment, I was like legitimately stressed out because I'm like, shit, like what is this? So anything I guess is mildly complicated the first time you do it, but then the second, third, fourth time you do it, you're just like, oh my God, that was easy, right? So I think Google Ads was very much the same for me. So I kind of went down, like we all do, went down the YouTube rabbit hole. And most of the strategies I learned from really good digital marketers actually aren't Amazon sellers. So I basically actually started kind of looking at people that aren't even affiliated with Amazon and studying and learning how they set up Google Ads. So that was kind of my platform, was finding YouTube ads that looked at Google Ads, but nothing at the time was really out there for Amazon sellers. And then just kind of went through the steps and like, hey, how the heck do you set these things up? So it literally takes 20-ish minutes to kind of set up your account and tie in all your payment details and then kind of get off to the races on your first campaign. My general approach and kind of the major reason that I'll use Google Ads is typically at launches. I definitely believe that everything is on the line the first 30 to 60 days of a product's life. If you don't get that right, all of the time doing product research, all of the time working with samples and ordering samples from China, refining the product, shipping it here, which is a pain in the ass now, as we all know, with shipping delays and stuff. Like, all of that work is for naught if you don't swing for the fences the first 30 days. So a cornerstone for me with external traffic is every single launch campaign needs to have this. You've got to push the chips in at launch because it's such a critical time in a product's life to get right and to get those seedlings of organic rank going and get that engine going, get conversion going on Amazon pay-per-click. You've got to get all those things right. So basically, it takes about 20 minutes. My general approach typically is in line with the keyword research that I've done on Amazon for a particular product. So I'm looking at all of the other ASINs in the space have done really well, reverse engineering their keyword performance in terms of organic rank, and then prioritizing those relevant high volume words that successful ASINs in the space are succeeding on. And I take that list. Usually it's about anywhere from 15 to 50 highly relevant terms. So I don't go crazy with keywords when it comes to Google. And I'll kind of take that 15 to 20 words and basically do an exact matched campaign on Google. They've got their own Google keyword planner where you can look at all the keywords that people search for on Google. I always say that, 70% is good enough when it comes to the Amazon space. You can, using Pareto principles, you can really have a really impactful performance by just focusing on the basics. So that's it, man. I take 15 to 20 of the words that are highly relevant that are succeeding on Amazon. I plug those in. I don't really care about Google Keyword Planner. I plug those in and I run anywhere from a $5 to $50 a day budget. And then in concert with Amazon pay-per-click and the other things that are important to do to scale sales performance and rank on Amazon, just kind of unleash all of those things and magic happens.
Yeah, and I also want to give a quick plug too. You were grateful enough to actually highlight some of this process in a YouTube video. We'll link to it in the show notes too. But you can just Google Adam Heist, Heist, Adam Heist, Google Ads. Search that on YouTube and you should be able to find Adam's video and his channel. By the way, I really enjoy your channel. I think it's great.
Appreciate it, man.
So we'll link to it, but you actually outlined this process in a detailed YouTube video. The YouTube video is about what was it, about 20 minutes long or so?
Yeah, I think it's 20, 30 minutes long. I mean, literally, if you've never even gone into ads.google.com before and you're a complete newbie, you could pretty much be off to the races, I think, in 30 minutes with this. If awesome. You've got a fleet of keywords, it's pretty easy to set up. Right.
So starting with those core keywords, the best ones from Amazon ads, you did some competitor research too, just, almost sounds like you have this core pack of terms that you take over to Google Ads, you launch it with that budget. And in terms of, so you obviously do that when you first kick things off during a launch.
Yep.
I want to talk about impact that you saw afterwards. I just want to sort of talk about the setup. So you would set this up basically when you're launching a product. Would you turn it off after sort of the first 60 days? Would you let it ride? How else did you incorporate Google Ads into your marketing mix?
Yeah, it's a great question. So again, kind of simple being the focus is kind of my approach. So typically, if I'm doing a launch, it's really rudimentary setup. I might set up a handful of campaigns if I've got a lot of words, but I'm not doing single keyword campaigns in Google or some of the more sophisticated stuff. I'll usually just dump them in 15 keyword tranches in exact match. I personally don't typically do Amazon attribution when I'm doing a launch simply because I don't really care if it converts. The goal is not conversion. The goal is not ROI on the Google ad spend. The goal is to send external traffic signals and tags and traffic to my listing that Amazon's going to pick up and realize, hey, these guys are interesting to me and we need to reward them with organic rank. So I keep it pretty simple. Usually the launch campaigns run about 3 weeks. Sometimes I'll run it longer or shorter, kind of depending on what's happening with budget and other things for the product. But launches are really kind of flash in the pan, short burst campaigns. And I really don't care much about performance other than sending signals in concert with the other strategies that are important at an Amazon launch to drive rank. There's two other use cases, in my view, for external traffic across the board, Google Ads specifically. And I would just say too, of all the traffic sources you can look at, Google Ads is probably the easiest to implement and the most impactful. It doesn't require graphics or a whole lot of like brilliant copywriting. And again, I break down some stuff in that video. It's pretty simple to set up. The second case to use it is what I like to call a relaunch. So we'd like to think that every launch and every product is just an amazing success and lives on and
sit back,
forever.
relax. Yeah.
But at some point in a product's life cycle, you're going to need to bring life back into it, whether you've just kind of haven't been paying attention to it much, or pay-per-click's gotten incredibly expensive and you can't really make the math work cleanly on driving all the traffic you need with Amazon pay-per-click. There's instances where for particular keywords or products, you kind of want to bump it back to where it was before, or you want to kind of revitalize it. In those cases, again, it's very similar to a launch. Typically requires a little bit more time, much like a concerted pay-per-click push on Amazon would take. But those are usually about 30 to 45 day pushes where it's like, hey, here's some places that we've lost ground. And the cool thing, once a product's actually been out there, you can now look at your search term reports, you can look at your conversion rates, you can look at your brand registry, Amazon search terms to see what your click share is, conversion share is, and know where the gap exists. And identify those words to bring it up. So the second kind of use case is kind of a re-rank. And it's very similar to a launch methodology. It's just really doing a heavy concerted push with traffic and channels across the board. And then the third one, and this is one where I actually do use Amazon attribution for. So those first two I really don't because they're more flash in the pan, are what I like to call maintenance campaigns. You can set these up very inexpensively. I'm talking $5 a day per campaign on Google Ads, just to slowly drip feed this external traffic to your listing with a focus more on ROI based stuff. So the cool thing about Amazon attribution, which in and of itself has had kind of I would call it a tarnished history. Let's just say it hasn't always been great.
I've got words. I've got words for it.
I would say Google Ads is probably the best with, which is kind of the good news. So it's not perfect, but especially with this new program where Amazon's actually going to basically credit you 10% of any converted sale that comes from external traffic. It's great for that. So you basically set up kind of a recurring campaign, and that's where you do more, I would call it pay-per-click oriented strategies, which is like, I actually do want to optimize the bids. I actually do want to see my ROI and my conversion like shake out such that I'm not losing a lot of money. But those slow drip feed campaigns, again, it's not super expensive. It could be $5-10 a day. And you're slowly drip feeding that using Amazon attribution to cull the words and the bid strategies that make sense to optimize the economics. So you're basically getting sales that make sense from an ROI standpoint, and you're getting that slow feed organic signals that Amazon will reward you in terms of organic rank. So those are the three use cases.
Awesome. Yeah. The brand referral bonus is one of the most exciting ingredients in this sending Google Ads traffic to your Amazon listing recipe that we're putting together. The fact that they credit, actual cash and will deduct that from, they don't give you money, they deduct it off future invoices that you are paying them, is so interesting. And it really just tells you that if they're deducting 10%, like they're obviously making profit with you sending external traffic. So like you could really tell how valuable it is to Amazon to do this. So exciting. And one thing that comes up, which I know a lot of people, it was very popular at one point in time. I haven't checked back in on this topic, but in terms of the URL that you're putting in the Google ad, is it just the direct product, Amazon.com/DP/ASIN, or is it some sort of specific like super URL where it's like you go and search the word and then you grab the link from there first, or some crazy thing like that? Are you just sending the traffic directly to the page?
Yeah, so this is my theory on this, and again, there's people that may disagree with this, but somewhat for simplicity and somewhat because of that data footprint that I realized that I kind of brought up at the top of this conversation, I use direct shoot links from the main link, and then there's something called site links. So if you ever go to like a Google ad and then there's like an about us page and a products page and a shop page, there's these links underneath. I will use canonical URLs on the site links, the ones down below, but the mainstay link, like the masthead link that most people click on, I always use a direct shot click-through link to the actual listing itself. The reason being on this is because of the tags that Amazon has on the back end. I believe that they clearly track, and I know that 100% fact. And I know that they track if it comes from an ad. And I believe that the reason that they track that is, again, because they want to reward people that are paying to send traffic to their Amazon listing. So I don't want to muddy that with some other link or confusion point, mainly from a data tracking standpoint. Then I think there's also the user kind of experience standpoint is I want to have the least amount of friction possible. Again, because the goal, other than the maintenance campaigns, isn't really necessarily to optimize conversion. Like I'm wanting to send as many eyeballs to my listing as possible from external sources. Some of them will convert, and I want them to convert, but that's not the reason I'm doing it. If I send them to a lander, number one, I lose the data attribution from Amazon in terms of tracking where they came from, which was a Google ad. But I also I reduce the number of people that are actually going to make it to my listing because there's increased friction. So for those reasons, I do direct shot links, and I don't mess around with keyword stuff and all that. I just keep it clean and simple, and it works. So I don't mess with it.
Yeah, exactly. Using the lessons from the ManyChat days, right? They could be applied here as well. So it makes total sense. You have to ask yourself, like, what would Amazon prefer? And like, they probably just want that direct link, send them to the page and have them buy. So that's awesome. Now, in terms of results that you noticed, obviously I want to ask about organic rankings on Amazon, hear about how maybe those were impacted. I also want to hear about, like, in that maintenance, when you are doing it with Amazon attribution, how you think about those metrics, like your Google ad spend and then the revenue that Amazon attribution says is generated from that. So I'd love to hear you talk about the rankings and the revenue component to this whole thing.
For sure. So I think I would say at the start, when you're doing like a launch campaign, it's difficult to isolate. I've done some A/B tests, which we'll get into, but it's difficult to isolate when you're doing heavy push pay-per-click. It's a brand new product and you don't know how good it is, frankly. Like, some products you could do nothing on and it's going to rank well. So it's a little bit of like, how is the soup made on launches is a little bit difficult. I had done one test where I basically didn't do any Amazon pay-per-click. It was actually a supplement product where I had really high cost per clicks. On that one, I actually ran Reddit ads a lot, and we did some stuff with Twitch influencers as well. But I was basically looking for cost per click arbitrage. Like, where can I find the cheapest cost per click and get the external attribution? In that launch, basically we pumped the brakes on Amazon pay-per-click. And when we did that, it just took off on rank. Now, was that explicitly the ads? Was it because the photo was good and clear? I mean, I don't think anybody can say definitively. And I think if they do, they're probably not being intellectually honest with you. But I've done that test. And then on the maintenance mode and our relaunch mode, I've done similar tests where I'm like, hey, let's just hold pay-per-click as we have. Do our regular, bid optimizations like we normally would, everything else. The only thing we need to inject, and this thing's been around for a year, let's just inject external ads and see what happens. Right. And that for me is a much more definitive data case where you can clearly see over a 2-3 week period, those organic ranks increase across the board for everything that your listing's optimized for.
Cool.
So those ones I've seen. Yeah. But is there like a mathematical certainty on the percentage of I mean, no. Some of this is directional, and you got to kind of just say, if it's working, keep doing it. So,
yeah, I think that perspective and the conclusion is as precise as anyone could get, and anyone who says that it's definitive, this is going to be the input, will be the exact output. It's impossible to say. Yeah. I always think that even if you had every single data point, you'd be overwhelmed with the amount of data and it'd be almost impossible to draw a conclusion from it.
Yep.
So really it's like trend analysis. It's good to hear that you've had that experience, because this is a technique that isn't the most complicated. So just running external traffic. Okay. So notice the ranking boost. And then how do you think about it in terms of like actual spend and actual revenue generated?
Yeah, so for maintenance campaigns, first of all, like for launch and kind of relaunches, it's just like you got to do an investment, whether it's doing a hard push on your bids on Amazon pay-per-click, or you want to do influencers, or whatever your strategy is. There's going to be an input cost to it. And the end game goal is that you basically improve organic rank, and then that facilitates an ROI, but there's an upfront sunk cost. With maintenance campaigns, it's much more similar to an Amazon pay-per-click world, which is it's not ACoS in this case, but let's just use the framework. What ACoS are you comfortable paying to achieve sales and to either hold or improve your organic rank. And I look at it very similar in terms of Google Ads. They're not going to convert in the same way that Amazon pay-per-click is, but typically the cost per clicks are going to be significantly cheaper. So it's just a math equation. I typically don't need to run break even on Google Ads because of the additional benefits that you get from external traffic. And I would not say that about Amazon pay-per-click. In fact, in some cases, if your conversion rate's bad, it's punitive to your organic rank. So not only are you losing money and not having ROI accretive cost per clicks and performance there, but you're actually hurting your organic rank, and you'd actually improve your organic rank if you ran no ads at all, or ran at a much better ACoS. I look at Google differently in the sense that you do get this external rank benefit. So I'll typically go, call it, if you wanted to use ACoS terms, I'll typically go about 20% more than what my break even is. The goal is to optimize for break even or better, but because you're not going to convert quite as well, we'll typically have a little bit more leniency in terms of ROI performance on Google Ads with ongoing maintenance attribution campaigns.
Yeah. A lot of really experienced wisdom that you just mentioned. Loved the thing that you said about if you are struggling with conversion rate and you just want to crank up Amazon PPC, it could actually be hazardous to your health because you're sending, more and more traffic to a listing that Amazon thinks is converting below average. Very wise right there. And so being able to understand, it seems like you do an exceptional job of understanding where and how all these gears are turning in this overall marketing machine. So just wanted to give you major props on that. And then, of course, with the Google Ads, ROAS, and one interesting thing too, this is sort of my interpretation of reading the tea leaves on Amazon, but I've always believed that Amazon knows if external traffic is coming into a listing, and they'll know that it's not going to convert the exact same as native Amazon traffic, and they don't factor when Amazon thinks of a product's conversion rate. I'm almost sure they're looking at it like native conversion rate of on Amazon traffic, and then they'll put external traffic in a different bucket of analysis, so that even if your Google Ads traffic converts at 7% and everything else on Amazon converts at 10%, it's not as if that's penalizing you. I think Amazon sees that 7% coming from Google Ads and says, okay, we know that Google Ads converts slightly lower. We're not going to penalize this listing for sending lower converting Google Ads. We're actually going to reward it for sending any external traffic because we wouldn't have gotten it in the first place had it not been for this advertiser.
Yeah, and I mean, here's my thesis on that particular point, because I think if you look at Amazon pay-per-click discreetly on the platform, they want to send the traffic to the listing that's most likely to convert. And they're going to charge you a higher cost per click if they don't think you're going to, they'll take your money as an advertiser if they think the math's right, but they typically want it to be a higher converting term. I think with external traffic, they don't necessarily care if that person that visits Amazon from your link or from your external traffic source actually converts on your product, because a couple things that happen that are monetarily valuable to them, really discrete from actually buying your product, are, there's 160 plus million Prime users. That may not be a Prime user. They may have now adopted a new Prime user, and that helps them in their arms race. And they probably have a lifetime value, that Prime user, that they attribute to those people that sign up. So there's that value. The other value is that they now have data, even if that person is an Amazon user already, they now have additional search query data and behavior analysis on that particular customer that enables them to send them emails that will make them convert, that will let them show display advertising to them natively across the web, that will enable them to promote products that match their needs over time. So they're gonna make money from that visit, and I think that they have a dollar amount for those external visits that they can attribute over time that they make, independent of whether or not that person adds your product to cart or buys it. And so I think that the reason, there's a monetary reason that I'm sure that they've calculated for the value of an external visit. And then I think that there's also this arms race mentality that Amazon has that you've kind of alluded to throughout the conversation a couple times, which is, I don't actually mind going underwater for a little bit because I can hold my breath longer than you, Google. I can hold my breath longer than you, Facebook. Like, I will go to the deepest waters possible for the next decade if I have to, because I want to be the place where anybody buying a product comes to buy a product. And if they have to sacrifice incrementally by rewarding me, this Joe Schmo Amazon seller with a little bit organic rank to incentivize me to send that traffic, they're willing to do that. But I think that they definitely have a monetary value on those clicks that come in. It doesn't necessarily need to be a conversion. Whereas Amazon pay-per-click is much more explicitly, what's my cost per click versus basket size versus AOV? Like, I think it's a little bit more financial with Amazon pay-per-click. And I think there's other attributes that play into it from external traffic. Said a lot there.
A lot of good stuff. No, this is really good intelligence for everyone to know. So thank you so much for sharing that. So 3 big reasons to run Google Ads traffic to your Amazon listing. Use it at launches. Use it when you are relaunching a product. Put it in maintenance mode. The brand referral bonus is the icing on the cake. See some ranking improvements. Potentially get some good positive ROAS, return on ad spend, over on the Google Ads side in the maintenance mode. And the one thing that I think people should do today is probably go to your YouTube channel, Adam Heist, look up the Google Ads video on YouTube, and actually start launching these things. Anything else that you'd like people to know as we wrap up this topic?
I don't think so, man. I just think, again, one of the things that's really served me well as an Amazon seller is do the incremental little things that 95% or 99% of Amazon sellers are too lazy to do. Amazon's an amazing platform in terms of what it lets people achieve with the flywheel, but it makes you a lazy, in my opinion, lazy digital marketer. Like, you don't have to be as good as somebody who's just doing a D2C business. But if you implement even a bastardized version of what those D2C marketers do, and a very like scratch the surface version, it has really impactful, amazing performance. So that's kind of been one of my ethos over the last couple of years, is just like find those little nuggets of things that most Amazon sellers won't do, a la Google Ads, implement them into your business. And I think that you really start to distance yourself from the competition on Amazon when you start to implement these things, and they're not difficult to do. So
yeah, hopefully everyone listening can get past that early inertia or that lack of inertia, because it's not too much of a brain busting, difficult activity. In fact, in the grand scheme of all the things that they'll ever do on Amazon, this is probably in the easy bucket. Like, it's relatively easy. So could this be one of the easiest, best ROI based activities you could do? It's possible. It's definitely in the easy bucket. But Adam, thank you so much. Super appreciate you having you coming on the show. Your YouTube channel is YouTube/C Adam Heist. So just go to YouTube, search Adam Heist. We'll link it in the show notes. Adam, thank you for coming on the show.
Dude, appreciate it again. I appreciate all that you do for the community too, and you're a legend. In fact, I got a team of mine in the Philippines. When they heard that I was coming on the show, they were more than ecstatic. They're like massive fanboys of you, so they're just like, "Oh my God, you're gonna be on Ad Badger." So, dude, it was an honor being on as well, and I appreciate what you do for the community. So, cheers, man.
Awesome. Have a good one.
Cool. Cheers.